Why am I an atheist? First and foremost, I want to explain that I don't know everything. I'm not even very knowledgeable in a lot of subjects. But I know that I don't know a lot in some things, which I know is something that might be required for an atheist in an area or in a world where there are a lot of very intelligent people who believe in God or a God. But first and foremost, I decided to become an atheist when the arguments that sustained my Christianity in my youth turned out not to be correct. Is that a stupid reason? I don't know. I'm not narcissistic enough to believe that anyone really cares whether or not I'm an atheist, except that maybe some people would rather see me be a Christian because they are benevolent and they want me to go to heaven. But I think I'm very passionate about ideas and I love starting conversations. And I want this to be a conversation and I don't want it to be malicious. Some people are legitimately searching for answers, and I am one of those people. I'm not necessarily searching for the answer of whether or not God exists. I've established that pretty firmly in my mind, but I'm searching for answers such as, I'm not even sure I know the questions. That's the problem. I don't know the questions, and I don't know the answers. So first and foremost, I am an atheist because I think the idea of the God as defined by the Bible isn't correct. And that idea is an omnipotent God who created people who have a free will. And the reason I think the Bible says we have a free will is because of the salvation message. The salvation message says that if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus Christ is Lord, then you shall be saved. So what does it mean to confess with your mouth? Or what does it mean to just do something? It means that you have the ability to do it. You have free will. The problem with that is that God is often defined as omnipotent, and a subset of omnipotence is omniscience. So if a God is omniscient, then he knows everything that's going to happen. And I've made these arguments since college, and I know they're not new, and I know that they're not particular to me, but these are just simple reasons why I don't believe. So if God is omniscient, he knows everything that's going to happen, and if he knows everything that's going to happen, then he knows whether or not you're going to make the choice to go to heaven or hell. So if an omnipotent God created human beings, then he knows that the person he created is either going to go to heaven or hell. Where is choice involved? You can say God created us with free will. The problem with God creating us with free will is that that's like impossible. And you're saying, well, how is it impossible? You don't know God. You don't understand the transcendence of God. You don't understand anything about him. He can do the impossible. But can he really do the impossible? So I think basically the salvation message kind of fails because it's impossible for God to give someone free will to decide whether or not he believes in him or not. Is God self-evident? No, I don't think so. But that's for another subject, another video, because that's a huge topic. Thomas Aquinas talks a lot about in Summa Theologica, but he actually rejects the notion that God is necessarily self-evident. So you can't just say, well, look around, God exists. And yeah, where did everything come from? Where did matter come from? What sustained my belief in my youth was that there had to be a prime mover. There had to be something that created everything. First, one of the reasons I became an atheist is because I read a lot of Ayn Rand at the time. And yes, the idea of atheism became like sexy. The idea of Christianity was sexy because, and that's probably a bad word to use for it, but it was sexy because like you're going to actually really be saving people if you convert people to Christianity and you believe that heaven exists and God exists. But atheism became sexy because it's sometimes it's really fun to be condescending in an argument, and it's fun to put people down, and it's fun just to know more. But it's also okay to admit that you don't know everything. And that lack of knowledge, that lack of not knowing something, is not a good basis for a belief in something. And that's what I use as a basis for my belief in Christianity. I use my lack of knowledge as a basis for belief in something. And when you look at something scientifically and you're trying to discover what's what in the world, and you assume God exists, you're going to look at it in a certain way. I went to the Creation Museum, and that's their argument basically. They look at things through the lens of God, that God must exist, and therefore all their science must fit into that lens. But an atheist looks at science in a way where they don't assume God exists. They don't assume he exists, and they don't assume he doesn't exist. But they try to discover things about the world and the universe without any assumptions. So one argument levied at atheists is that atheists do not know everything and therefore should believe in the Christian God. There is no particular reason to believe in a God nor the Christian God simply because someone doesn't know everything there is to know. No one knows everything there is to know. No one knows enough to know whether or not God really exists 100%. Does that make me an agnostic? Why don't I claim to be an agnostic if I don't know 100% whether or not God exists? I don't require 100% knowledge in order to believe something exists or doesn't exist. I believe God doesn't exist. I believe that without 100% evidence, because it's impossible to prove a negative. If you are asked to prove a negative, and like if you're asked to prove unicorns don't exist, what if someone said, well, they only exist spiritually and they only appear to you once in a while, only to certain people? Then how would you disprove them? You can't. It's like impossible. So am I a unicorn agnostic? No. I'm an atheist. I don't believe God exists, and particularly the Christian God that was presented to me in my youth, and that is most interesting to talk about. So, like, I do want this to be a conversation. There are so many interesting ideas to talk about, and I am searching for something. Do I have a God-shaped hole in me? And am I searching for a creator? No, I don't think so. But I am in search for community and a way of living life that's fulfilling. Is that Christianity? I mean, it could be. I don't necessarily think it is, but who knows? I like conversations. I like being exposed to new ideas, and that's what I want to do here. One final thought and one thing to think about, even if you're a Christian or an atheist. Think about the problem of being in the present. The present is what we are, where we are now. Think about the idea of infinity. Infinity, if you had to count to infinity, you never could by nature of infinity. But think about us traveling through time to get to the present. How could we travel to the present if the past was infinite? I decided that's a physics question. It's a question I don't understand, and it's a question I think. The answer could be there's a prime mover, but the answer could also be something I just read actually today. Stephen Hawking has a book out, and it talks about a quantum vacuum in the existence of the universe coming into existence. Prior to that, we may have been in a quantum vacuum, and by we, I mean nothing. But where is the starting point? How do things start? It had to have started. We can't pass through infinity. So, if anyone has an answer to that question, if you're an atheist, do you think all matter passed through infinity to get to the present? That's impossible. And if you're a Christian, what's your belief? Yeah, God created everything. Easy answer. Why not read Stephen Hawking, though? Why not see what he has to say about it? So I'm going to make some more videos on the subject. Check out my blog on Steemit. I'll link it, and check out everything else. Thanks.